Hey, what's up guys? My name is Jared. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Nissan engine, the Land Cruiser, and the Honda. So my plan was to have this Nissan engine reassembled by the end of the week and get a video out by Friday. And I was moving right along. I thought that was going to be possible, but I've run into a bit of an issue. So I recently got a set of micrometers, and I already had a bore gauge because I'm going to need those when I assemble the engine for the Land Cruiser so that I can check the main bearings and other clearances. Now, as you may remember, this Nissan engine, I bought it as a rebuilt engine with low miles on it. The only reason I took it apart is because it sat for so long that it had some corrosion. I could feel some corrosion in the cylinders. I could see a little bit of corrosion around the valves on the head. So I just wanted to take it apart and clean it up. And every time I've gone deeper into it, every time I've taken more off, I've found more issues. So for one instance, this cover plate that goes over the timing chain right here, you can see when they put it back together, there are these bolts along the bottom. Bolts go in here along the bottom to hold the oil pan in. They used one bolt that was too long, and they broke the top of this little casting piece off. So there was a piece of metal sitting inside of this case, but also you would have had a direct oil leak straight through that bolt that would have been almost impossible to stop. So the piece was here, and I was able to JB weld it back on. It's not structural, it's really just stopping oil from getting out. And of course now there's no piece bouncing around in here around the timing chain, so that's a plus. But lots of little things like that have been showing up. So for instance, this timing chain guide, you can see this is in really bad shape. But it's not loose now, which means that it was in that shape when they put this engine together, and they just tightened it down and decided to use it as it is. Now, you can get this piece at any hardware store for 15 bucks. I mean, it's easy to get, it's cheap to get. There's really no excuse for reusing it. I already picked one up, so of course I'm going to replace that. The other things, I wanted to start putting the pistons in, and I've found some issues there now that I've got the micrometer and the bore gauge. So I checked the bearings. I checked this, and I checked the gap between the rod bearings and the cam, or the crank, I'm sorry. And that's correct. That's exactly within spec. It's where it should be. I checked the gap on the piston rings, and they're just slightly outside of spec. They're just a hair, the gap is a hair larger than it should be. But that wouldn't have been that big of an issue. I also checked the piston to bore clearance, and that's pretty far out of where it's supposed to be. It's quite a bit larger, according to the manual. But the pistons are not stock, and so my thought was that it could just be that the material of this piston requires a little bit more clearance between the piston and the cylinder wall because it's going to heat and it's going to expand larger than the stock material, and so maybe that's why there was that difference. So I was okay with that, even though it wasn't great. But the real problem was, of course, as you see, there's another broken ring. The thing that I just can't get away from. Every engine I touch has a broken piston ring by the time I'm done with it. But so the problem was a lot of the piston rings were stuck inside the piston. Like this one, you see, it still won't come out. I went through all 4 of them, and the other 3 were fine. I got the old rings out, I cleaned them up, I put them back in, everything worked smoothly. But this, of course, the last ring on the last piston, I couldn't get it out. And eventually, in my attempt to get it out, it broke. So now I need to, at the very minimum, get new rings but possibly get new pistons, which means possibly rebore those cylinders. When you bore the cylinders, obviously you want to have the pistons there so that you can bore them to the correct size. So if I buy new pistons and rings, and then there's a good chance I'm going to need to rebore this, which means I may need to go a little bit larger. So I'm really kind of at a standstill right now. I've looked online. Rings are cheap. Standard size rings are like 30 bucks. So I would imagine that an oversized set of rings would be similar. And maybe all the rings are pretty similar regardless of the pistons, and maybe I can just buy a new set of rings for this piston, which is, I think it's 20 over. But so maybe I can just get a new set of rings for 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever, put them on here and be fine. But I've got to do a lot of research before I can figure out how to move forward with this one. So it's not going to be assembled by Friday, so there won't be that video. So I decided to go ahead and do this quick update video to kind of let you guys know what's going on. Before I went to put the pistons in, I went over the head. I cleaned the head some more. I took all the valves out. I reseated them. That all went well. The valves, some of them were a little bit stiff to get out, again, from sitting for so long, but they all cleaned up really well. I'm very happy with how the head came out. It's very obvious that it has been rebuilt, just like the rest of the engine has been gone through. I feel pretty confident with the head. I don't think there's going to be any issues with this. The cam seems to be fine. So all of that, I'm feeling good about. It's basically just these pistons and rings that I've got to figure out. I'm going to have to do some more research to determine whether or not that extra gap between the piston and the cylinder wall is acceptable with these pistons, and if so, then maybe I'll just get new rings for it and be done. Otherwise, I'm going to have to decide whether maybe I get even larger pistons and rings, and then take the block in and have it bored out a little bit. But anyway, so that's what's going on with the Nissan engine. I mean, the good thing is that parts for this car are pretty cheap and they're relatively easy to get. The bad news is it's just another delay. So, you know, the thing's just sitting in that spot for even longer. But okay, so that's the Nissan. The Land Cruiser, you'll see I've got the frame back in the garage. I'm getting really excited about the Land Cruiser. I've been watching tons of drive videos of FJ40s. I mean, I'm getting really psyched up about having this thing finished and actually driving it. So I'm looking forward to getting the engine back. So, hey, look who it is, Walter. Walter, what's up, buddy? I thought I heard you back there. What's up, Walter? Hey, hey, how you go? Okay, so the Land Cruiser. So I mentioned in the last video, I was very happy with the way the head came out from the machine shop I took it to, but I still needed to do the cam bearings, and also the freeze plugs had not been replaced in the block. So I dropped the block off and the cam off and new bearings at another machine shop that I trust, but this is the place that's going to go out of business soon, so I can use them today, but you know, they won't be around probably next year. Anyway, they put in the new cam bearings, and I believe the freeze plugs already, but they also sent the cam out to be reground. He recommended that, which again, the first machine shop didn't recommend any of this to be done. So I'm glad I went to this second place. But so that cam is getting reground, and hopefully I'll get it back sometime next week. I also ordered a new set of lifters, which those are not cheap, but I've got those coming. So once I get all that stuff, then I can really get going on this engine, get it back together, and get it back on the frame. And then from that point, I'll finish up the tub and get that back on here so that this thing can be moved on its own. It can drive itself in and out instead of me pushing it. And then I'll start working on all the other panels. So that's the Land Cruiser. I'm very excited about it. I will be putting out videos as soon as I can on that one, guys, so thanks for being patient. But they are coming soon. So on to the Honda. The Honda is doing really great. I've been driving it everywhere. I've got, let's see, 592, so I'm just under 600 miles on it since the rebuild. I've already done the first oil change. I changed the oil at 500 miles. Everything looked pretty good in there. The oil had a little bit of a metallic, look to it, especially at the bottom, which was expected. That's why you change it so quickly after a rebuild. but everything else looked good. It's been running really good. I don't go into the higher RPMs that often, and to be honest, I really don't enjoy the car that much like I thought I would in the higher RPMs. I really enjoy driving it below 7,000. It's a very fun car. It's not fast, but most of my cars aren't really fast. They're just fun. So I will occasionally get into I've got up to 8,500 RPM once or twice, and it's a whole nother experience when you go past 7,000 RPM. The sound really changes and gets extremely loud. The speed doesn't change much. It doesn't accelerate much in my experience past that point. It just gets a lot louder and a little bit faster. Above 4,000, you definitely feel the power kind of kick in, but there's not a big jump from the 4 to 7,000. Just kind of a slow, gradual climb. So anyway, it is an amazing car as I expected, and it's extremely fun to drive. I kind of like it for reasons other than I expected to. It's actually pretty comfortable. It's enjoyable to drive. It's not that loud at the lower RPMs. It definitely gets a lot of looks and lots of thumbs up. And every time I've stopped to get gas, people come over and want to take pictures or talk to me about it. So it's really a fun car. I've done a few things that I didn't film. One, I don't think I ever mentioned, but I got new bumpers for it before I ever drove it. So it's had new bumpers for a while. And then I just recently got these backup lights. These would have been an option back in the day. And so I was able to find a set of new old stock. And so I installed those as well, just to kind of dress up the back with all of this, rust and stuff that's not there, or that's not going to be painted over. To make it look a little bit nicer. But I like those. I like the look. I patched the holes in the floorboard. I welded those up, and then I coated it with POR15, and then I put some sound deadening material over it because there was a bit of a rattle down there that I was trying to get rid of. But I still need to patch the trunk. That's going to be the main rust repair. So I'll most likely do a video on that. But I'm trying to get a cover for the spare tire when it goes in there. And also the tires that I have, these are pretty wide for this car. There's Walter again. And I can't actually fit the spare tire under the gas tank. There's not enough room because the tires are too wide. And then the tire won't fit in the trunk without going in the wheel well. It's too wide. So I can't put the spare in there until I get a smaller tire. So once I get all of that ready, then I'll probably do a video where I fix the rust and clean everything up on the trunk and kind of finish that area up. But so that's pretty much it on the Honda. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. But yeah, so I'm making progress on both the Nissan and the Land Cruiser, and hopefully I'm going to have videos out for both of those soon. But for now, it was just kind of an update on this new setback. Of course, piston rings. That's my constant problem, is dealing with piston rings. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I'll see you next time. Bye.